It came on no postmark, no return address, just her name, Marissa Lee Calder, written in perfect Catholic cursive on a yellowed envelope that smelled faintly of mildew and burnt wax. Marissa was halfway through preparing a brief on pharmaceutical fraud when she saw the envelope sitting oddly on top of her laptop keyboard, though she was certain the office had been locked when she stepped out for lunch. She hesitated before opening it, because something about it felt wrong. Wrong like mold in the walls, or the feeling of falling just before sleep. Inside was a letter, written in ink that had bled slightly from age. The paper felt old, older than it should have, maybe even decades. Dear Miss Calder, it is time. Return to Black Hollow by October 30th. The others are already waiting room. Be dozy Mr. Ephraim Bellows, instructor of ritual theory and classical demonology. Marissa's heart sank. Mr. Bellows was dead. He had been for 28 years. She remembered because she'd found him his throat slit. A look of shock frozen on his face, right outside the basement classroom. Room B12, the place where they'd held that stupid seance on Halloween night. 1997. The headmistress called. It is suicide. The students whispered darker things. But none of it mattered after that night. The school shut down the following summer. They all scattered, and none of them ever talked about what they did, until now. Marissa barely slept for 2 nights. She tried to throw the letter away, but found it back in her purse the next morning. She tried burning it, but it wouldn't catch, not even with lighter fluid. The ink only darkened and pulsed, as if it were alive. And then, the dream started. She saw the hollow, that misty stretch of forest behind the school where the woods dipped into a natural basin. She saw the old stone circle with the broken altar. She saw Darla Beecham, her best friend at 16, whose body was never found. And she heard Bellows' voice, whispering from behind the classroom chalkboard. The left-hand path is not walked, it walks you. On October 29th, Marissa drove 6 hours north into the Berkshires. Her therapist told her this was a step toward closure. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like opening something that had been sealed for a reason. Blackhollowacademy stood just as she remembered, gothic, brooding, and forgotten. The wrought iron gates were twisted and rusted, the granite sign cracked down the middle. Ivy grew over the windows like nature was trying to smother the place into silence. Yet the front door was wide open. Inside, the floors creaked in that old familiar way. Her shoes echoed off empty stone halls. A crow fluttered down one corridor and vanished behind a broken locker. The classrooms were still furnished, though dusty. A few scattered papers, chairs tucked in, as if the school had just paused frozen in time, waiting for someone to press play. Then she found the old plaque outside the basement staircase. B-Wing, lower instructional. Rooms restricted faculty access, only the air was colder here. Not just a chill, a drop, sudden and unnatural, like stepping into a crypt. And there, at the bottom of the stairs, was the door to room B-12. It was unlocked. The classroom looked exactly as it had the night of the ritual. Candles still melted to their holders. Chalk symbols, half erased, but still visible under the grime. A semicircle of desks, and 5 figures sitting motionless at them. Marissa froze. They were her classmates, or, at least, they looked like them. Sam, Corrine, Jonah, Lily, and Felix. They sat perfectly still, eyes closed. Their skin was pale, almost waxy, as if they'd been embalmed and preserved in place. They didn't breathe, but when Marissa stepped into the room, their eyes snapped open at the same time. 5 voices spoke in unison. "We've been waiting, Marissa." And from behind the chalkboard, a deep, slow scratching began like fingernails on slate. Something was trying to come through. The next day, Avery returned to the church with the rest of the crew. The wind had picked up overnight, carrying a desert chill that made the scorched wooden door groan like something alive. They had brought more equipment, boom mics, thermal cameras, to night vision rigs, and even an EMF detector for extra flair. What they lacked in faith, they made up for in showmanship. Inside, the church was eerily silent. The pews hadn't moved since yesterday, but there was something off. A smell hung in the air, like burnt copper and mildew. Avery wrinkled her nose. The others didn't seem to notice. "Okay, team," Avery said, trying to suppress the unease. Twisting in her gut, we set up 3 camera zones: pulpit, confessionals, and the back hall with the trap door. "I'll take the pulpit. Miles, you get the trap door." "Julia, confessionals. Tonight, we go live." The sun dipped low outside, shadows stretching like claws across the stained glass windows. The moment the stream went live at 8 p.m. sharp, comments flooded in. "This place looks cursed as hell. Real demon vibes, not gonna lie. Do the Latin chant. Do the chant." The chat was electric. Avery smirked at the engagement spike. "Welcome back, Nitraith family," she cooed into the camera. "Tonight, we confront the darkness itself in this 1800s desert church, where locals once believed a demon named Ereshkigal was sealed beneath the altar. Let's find out if the legend ... is real." She read from the worn page again. Her voice trembled slightly this time. "Sanctum daemonium, odinus, ostante." The moment the words left her lips, all the candles around her flickered. A low hum rose from the floorboards. Miles' voice crackled over the walkie. "Guys, you hearing this? I think I found another room under the trap door. There's chanting. But I'm alone down here." Avery's blood turned to ice. "That's not funny, Miles. I'm not kidding. I think there's something written on the walls, in blood." Julia's voice came next, breathless and frightened. "Something's in the confessional with me. I heard breathing, I swear to God." Suddenly, the chat exploded. What was that behind her? Rewind 322. Look, there was a black figure behind the curtain. Avery whipped around. Nothing, just the hollow silence of the abandoned church. Her camera shook in her hands. "Avery," Miles said again, but his voice was wrong, slurred, warped, like a recording played backward. "Come see." Then silence. "Avery," Julia whispered over the walkie, now crying. I can't open the confessional door. It's locked. It's not even no God, it's breathing. The wood is breathing." Panic surged through Avery. She sprinted to the confessional booth. Julia was pounding on the inside, her screams muffled. Avery grabbed a door, handle scalding hot. She yanked it open with a hiss of pain. No one was inside. No Julia, no light, just a vacant seat. But something wet was dripping from the ceiling. Avery looked up and screamed. A hand, pale, childlike, clawed, retreating into the wood. The stream cut to static for 3 full seconds. When it returned, Avery was hyperventilating, back at the pulpit. "Guys, this isn't funny. Stop messing around, Julia. Miles, come out now. I'm ending this." But the EMF reader was screaming red. The candles had gone out, and the chat had frozen on one chilling message. "Behind you, Avery." She turned slowly. A child was standing near the altar. It was barefoot. Its eyes were bottomless pits of black, and it smiled with a mouth full of needles. The lights blew out. Screams echoed. The stream went dead, and thousands of viewers saw something crawl into the lens before the final blackout. Something with backward limbs and a stitched mouth, whispering, "Let me in." Stitched mouth, whispering, "Let me in." The footage fumbled offline within 30 minutes, but not before it was screen recorded, shared, dissected, slowed down, and enhanced by millions. Clips flooded Reddit, Twitter, Chikituki, YouTube under titles like "Real Demon," "Caught on Livestream," "Did this girl summon something on camera?" "The Ereshkigal entity," "Frame by frame breakdown." People became obsessed with the static that followed Avery's scream. Audio engineers claimed to have isolated voices, hidden beneath the static. Dozens maybe hundreds, all whispering one phrase. You opened the gate. But it wasn't just internet hysteria, because after that night, strange things began to happen to the viewers. Thousands of people reported identical dreams, a burning desert chapel, filled with crying infants, and a voice that said, "You watched. That means you belong." One viewer, a college student in Tempe, was found dead in his dorm, eyes gouged out, with the words Sanctum Daemonium carved into his chest. Another woman in Seattle claimed her baby monitor picked up the stream after it had been taken down, and those who had watched the live stream in full. Some began to vanish. Back in Arizona, 3 days had passed since the broadcast. The police found no sign of Miles or Julia. The confessionals were empty. The trap door in the back hall was sealed shut with stone. Avery was found wandering barefoot along Route 89, miles from the church. Her eyes were bloodshot, lips cracked, skin sunburned. She couldn't remember how she got there. When asked what happened, she only repeated one thing: "He's awake now. We made him real." They admitted her to Flagstaff Medical Center under psychiatric observation. That's where the hospital staff started noticing strange occurrences. On her second night in the psychiatric ward, nurses reported hearing humming from Avery's room, a lullaby in Latin, when they entered. She was asleep, yet the humming continued from the walls. One nurse quit on the spot after seeing Avery's shadow move independently of her body. That same night, she was caught on surveillance cam standing, completely still at the end of the hallway, head tilted, eyes open. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. When security zoomed in, the footage distorted into black static. Later, when a technician tried to recover the frame, he vomited on sight, because in the single, sharpened still, the face looking back wasn't Avery's. It was something ancient, genderless, with hollow eyes and a jagged smile stitched from ear to ear. A priest was called in discreetly. He didn't last more than 15 minutes in her room. He burst out of the psychiatric wing soaked in sweat, muttering, "Herschel, it's real. It spoke to me." Then he drove his car into the Salt River at 3 a.m. Back online, conspiracy forums caught fire. The name Marissa began trending, thought to be a myth from pre-Christian desert tribes. Some called it the Cinderborn, an entity sealed in the earth before humans even walked upright. Others found fragments of ancient texts hinting at a ritual of false witness, a summoning done not by believers, but by those who mock belief, a digital congregation of doubters. Just like Avery's live stream, they hadn't summoned it by accident. They had fed it by watching, by laughing, by sharing, by turning ritual into content. Meanwhile, deep beneath the church, a camera turned on. No one had placed it there. There was no light source, but the feed began streaming to a private, encrypted server. In the grainy image, something crawled across the stone floor slowly, methodically, backward. Its limbs were long, spindly, clicking like insect legs. Its head was upside down. It pressed its mouth to the lens and whispered, "More eyes. I need more eyes." And then the feed spread to TikTok, to Discord. 2 late-night forums. People who never watched the original video began having nightmares anyway. That's when the suicides started. It began with a single post on a horror subreddit. "I never watched the live stream, I swear to God, but I keep dreaming about a thing whispering in my ear. My dog won't come near me. My reflection is wrong. What's happening?" Within hours, the post had over 30,000 comments, people claiming eerily similar experiences. Users who had only heard about the exorcism started reporting blackouts, nosebleeds, nightmares of burning pews, and shadowed altars. One user posted a screenshot of their YouTube homepage, where every recommended video had mysteriously shifted to variations of the same thumbnail: a dark chapel, a hunched figure, a single Latin title, Sanguinum Videor, to see blood. YouTube denied any manipulation. But the algorithm was no longer following code. It was infected. Somehow, the cursed stream had embedded itself, not just in people's minds, but in the very architecture of the internet, spreading like rot through servers, caches, image metadata. A Stanford digital forensics team published a paper claiming fragments of the original feed were being picked up in unrelated videos, ads, lives, even children's cartoons. Their conclusion: we're dealing with a self-propagating digital ritual, an information-based contagion. It doesn't require belief, just exposure. That paper never made it to print. The entire team vanished 2 days later. Their lab was found ransacked. Walls covered in cryptic symbols burned into drywall. The words "your eyes were open" were scrawled in feces across the windows. Feces across the windows. Avery for 8 days. When she finally did, it was into the security camera in her padded room. She looked directly into the lens, her eyes milky and gray, her voice layered with a faint chorus of whispers. You gave him what he wanted: a pulpit, a stage, a billion glowing screens. Then she smiled. Do you think God's the only thing that feeds on worship? Asterisk, asterisk, elsewhere, an exorcist in Boston went live on Instagram, ranting that the demon has gone non-local, that it had become an idea with teeth, immune to traditional rites. Viewers laughed at first, until his feed, glitched, for 6 minutes. The screen turned black. When the image returned, the priest was gone. All that remained was the sound of breathing, a faint, childlike giggle, in reverse. Asterisk, asterisk, it became known as the Arischel Bloom, an outbreak of supernatural phenomena tied to screens, not places, not people, but viewership. A woman in Tampa scratched her eyes out after binge-watching a series of paranormal breakdown videos that never existed on her device. A Twitch streamer tried to prank his audience by faking an exorcism, only to go limp midstream, whispering he lives in the frames as blood poured from his ears. Parents reported their toddlers speaking fluent Latin after watching Baby Shark remixes on iPads. Emergency services were overwhelmed, churches rearmed with crucifixes and salt. Tech companies scrambled to scrub the internet clean. But the deeper they dug, the deeper it hid, in broken links, corrupted archives, cached tic-tacs, old Vine audio. The demon didn't need a host anymore. It had a platform. Asterisk, asterisk, back in Flagstaff. Avery escaped. Surveillance footage caught her standing bolt upright at 3:13 a.m., then walking through the wall, not disappearing, passing through it like vapor, as if her body were no longer fully human. The next morning, every patient in the psychiatric ward was found dead, mouths gaping, spines arched backwards in an impossible bend. All of them had the same last browser history entry: exorcism livestream full HD 1080p, original version. Asterisk, asterisk, Avery's location remains unknown. But 3 days later, a new channel appeared on YouTube with no name, no icon, no subscriber count. It uploaded one video, a flickering image of the church in Arizona, empty, moonlight pouring through broken windows, a faint whisper playing beneath the wind. The sermon has not yet begun. And then, at the 66-minute mark, a door creaks open, and something slithers out of the darkness. The video was titled only with a date, August 1st, 2025. No description, no tags, no comments. But within hours of uploading, it had over 11 million views, and yet, if you searched for it manually, it didn't exist. You could only find it if it found you. People reported the video appearing in their autoplay queue after watching completely unrelated content. A cooking tutorial, a podcast, a music video. It simply appeared, and once you clicked on it, your history would go blank. No sign you'd ever watched anything. But those who remembered, spoke of one thing above all else: the Gate of Teeth. At exactly 66 minutes and 6 seconds into the video, the camera began to descend. As if something had picked it up and was carrying it down, deeper into the ruined church. It passed shattered pews, blood-slicked tiles, the broken altar, and then it found a hatch. Viewers described hearing a chanting sound subsonic, not in any known language, something ancient, wet, clicking. The hatch opened, stone stairs spiraled downward into a blackness so dense it seemed to drink light. The walls were jagged, gnawed, and lining them dozens, maybe hundreds of human teeth, embedded like fossils. The video never showed what was at the bottom. It ended in static, but many said the static went on forever. Some users couldn't close the window. The tab multiplied by itself. Monitors refused to turn off. Phones refused to die, even at 0%. One woman threw her laptop in the ocean and still heard whispering through her hearing aids. That was when people began speaking the phrase, "The gate is open," as if it were a greeting, a warning, or a prayer. Asterisk, asterisk, in a sealed Vatican archive. Father Angelo Turinetta, once excommunicated for unorthodox demonology, read the reports with shaking hands. He recognized the signs. Urshel was real, not just a name spoken in fear, but an entity older than Lucifer, not cast from heaven, but born beneath creation, a pre-verbal force, a thing that lives between frequencies, between blinks, between one south and O south. He had studied fragments of a forbidden grimoire, recovered from the ruins of Aleppo, the Codex Exumbra. It mentioned Erishiel as a god eater, a thing summoned only by mistake, not by faith, but by scale. When enough eyes watch the abyss, the text read, "It begins to watch back," asterisk, asterisk, in a dim studio apartment in Detroit. A man known only as Stygian Kitten, a paranormal coder with a history of mental breaks, claimed to have traced the source code of the original Erishiel video. He said it had no file extension, no format, no codec, just one encrypted line, "Render unto me your audience." He posted a warning on Reddit before smashing his modem with a hammer. That night, he live-streamed his own suicide. Except he didn't die. He stood still for 17 hours, eyes rolled back, speaking backwards Latin in a child's voice, before vanishing completely at dawn. His livestream continued for 9 more days, showing only a slowly opening doorway made of bone and glass. YouTube tried to remove the video. They couldn't. Every time they deleted it, 10 more copies surfaced, each with a slightly different title, each spreading the feed to new devices. New minds. The gate was replicating. Asterisk, asterisk, hospitals began filling with patients with no prior history of mental illness. Common symptoms: sudden obsession with spirals, uncontrollable vomiting of teeth, writing, "Let him preach in blood," over and over, refusal to be near any screen. One girl gouged out her own eyes with a broken phone and said, "He was inside the pixels. He was inside the pixels." On August, Pope held an emergency mass at St. Peter's Basilica. It was live-streamed globally at precisely 12 p.m. All video feeds glitched for 0.7 seconds. Every person watching saw the same frame, a close-up of a mouth, wide, glistening, lined with hundreds of perfect human teeth. And from that mouth, a whisper echoed in every language, in every ear, "Confess." 15,000 viewers suffered simultaneous heart attacks. 32 went permanently blind. But most horrific of all, dozens of them, independently, recorded hearing the same 7-digit number whispered just before their screens went black. It was a GPS coordinate. Deep in Arizona, a desert plain with nothing but wind, sand, and heat. Except now, something was rising from the earth, something vast, and open, and full of teeth. Zane's body lay broken in the chapel ruins. His final words, gasped out in a voice both his and not still, echoed faintly in the cold air. "He sees us all." Kira knelt beside him, trembling eyes bloodshot, her hoodie torn and soaked in dust, sweat, and blood. She didn't cry. There were no tears left, only fear and fury. Jaden stood behind her, barely able to hold his phone, which continued broadcasting to the hundreds still watching. The live chat had turned into chaos. Comments raced across the screen. What the hell is this? Is this real? Someone call the police. They're all gonna die. Jaden read them, slack-jawed. Even now, people thought it was content. They didn't see the thing behind the veil, didn't feel the heatless cold pouring through the air, didn't hear the whispers bleeding from the rafters. But the watchers were part of it now. All of them. Kira looked up suddenly. We have to end the stream. What? That's how he's spreading. Through them. Through views. Jaden's mouth went dry. We're making him stronger. Zane said it. Every viewer opens a door. Every like, every share feeds it. Jaden fumbled with the phone. But as he went to hit the end stream button, the screen glitched. Static. Then a face. Not human. All jaw. Burnt skin. Eyeless sockets. It grinned from the inside of the camera. The phone burst into flames in his hands. Jaden screamed and threw it to the ground, watching the screen melt into blackened glass. The live stream didn't stop. Somewhere out there it was still playing. They were out of time. We need to finish the ritual, Kira said, standing slowly, her legs shaking. This was never just an abandoned church. It was a prison. For what? For him. From the ruined floorboards, where the sigil had been scrawled, a sickly red light glowed now. The candle stubs relit themselves. The salt ring turned black. The book, Zane's ancient book, was open again, its pages turning without touch. Faster and faster, as if wind ripped through it. Kira grabbed the book. She began to chant not the fake lines Zane had taught her for the performance, but the real ones, in the old Latin no one used anymore. The binding words. They rolled out of her mouth like smoke. Jaden stood in a daze. The church's foundation shook. Screams rang out from deep beneath them, hundreds of voices, trapped, echoing from stone tombs under the floor. The lights exploded one by one, plunging the building into crimson, sigil-lit darkness. And then, he came, not walking, not floating, just there. The demon, the thing, stood in the center of the church, within the circle. Its body was wrong, too long, too thin, stitched together with shadow and ember. Its face was human, and not a constant blur of all the viewers who had seen him. A mirror of modern fear, a god of digital attention. I was forgotten, it whispered in a dozen voices. Now I am remembered. Kira's chanting grew louder. The book trembled in her hands. Jaden dropped to his knees, covering his ears, blood leaking from them as the demon screamed, not with sound, but with thought. You invited me in, the demon growled, and I'm uninviting you now, Kira hissed, with a final shout. She thrust the book into the fire of the melted phone. The circle flared bright. The demon roared, driving, unraveling, sucked backward into the floor. The walls of the church began to collapse. The rafters cracked. The stained glass exploded inward. Jaden grabbed Kira and pulled her toward the collapsing doorway. They ran outside. The church groaned like a dying beast, and then silence. When they reached the road, out of breath and bleeding, the sun was just beginning to rise. Kira looked back. The church was gone. Only scorched earth remained, but the damage had already spread. Epilogue, U2, days later. The New York Times ran a piece about a mysterious, fiery collapse in rural Pennsylvania. They blamed squatters. No injuries were officially reported, but online, the video kept appearing. Not on YouTube, not on Twitch, not even on the dark web, just popping up in people's feeds. At random, no source, no explanation, and always the same title: Live Exorcism Gone Wrong. Real demon caught on camera. No one ever makes it to the end of the video. They say the demon recognizes you if you do, and then you start seeing him in the corner of your room, watching, waiting for the next stream, waiting for the next stream.